I got a huge response from a video that I made exactly a year ago about budgeting for Christmas on one income starting in the summertime in July. It was called Christmas in July, and I can try to link that below if anyone's interested in seeing that. But through social media, Facebook and Instagram, I post a lot about my husband and I and our debt-free journey that we've been on through the Dave Ramsey plan. And I've actually gotten a lot of questions, a lot of inbox messages, all kinds of stuff. People just asking questions. How do we get started? How can they get started? And it's just really been inspiring because it's been life-changing in the best way possible. And I just wanted to reach out, and the best way to do that in today's world is to make a video, because I know for myself, I still pull up other people, regular people like myself, that are in the midst of their journey becoming debt-free, and it's really inspiring. You can learn things that ultimately helps your journey be easier. You can learn from each other, and so I think the best way to do that is just be honest about what you've been doing and how you have gotten to the point that you have. So last August, just a little recap, last August, my husband and I were listening to Dave Ramsey on his podcast, and I don't know why, but that particular video just really hit us, and we're like, why are we just listening to this? We actually need to do it. And so we did, and now it is July of the following year, and this is our last month. We thought we would finish up in September. We're actually going to finish at the end of July, and we'll be done. We will have no debt other than our mortgage, which is still a debt, but if you're familiar with with Dave Ramsey's process, you pay off all your debts except for your mortgage. You get your emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up for an emergency fund, and then you will start your investments and things like that, and then you work towards your mortgage. All that is not what this video is about. Actually, I wrote down some things. I wanted to talk about our reasons, and I'm going to speak for my husband, even though he will not be in this video, our reasoning for doing what we've done and how aggressively we've done it and what caused us to stick with it, because ultimately a ton of people have bought Dave Ramsey's books. You've probably gone and taken his class at a church or somewhere. They have listened to the podcast and things like my husband and I have done, and they haven't done it. Maybe they even started and they never stuck with it. And I think what has been the reason that we've had success thus far is really pinpointing our reasoning as a family, as a couple, why we want to get out of debt. I mean, what is the purpose? I think any goal that you have has to have a purpose behind it. Otherwise, it is going to fall by the wayside, and you're just not going to see past what's in front of you. And when you start, what's in front of you is a ton of debt, and it feels hopeless and it's frustrating. You just think, I just don't think this is going to happen. And honestly, the first few months into it, I was like, this is hard, and it really didn't get any easier. I'm not going to lie. There were a lot of things. We did take one break and took a family vacation that we saved for and paid cash for. And I'll tell you what, that actually ended up being a huge boost for us, because we're like, wow, we took this trip, this nice trip for a whole week. We took our boys. It involved a flight. It was at an all-inclusive resort, all this stuff, and we paid cash for it. Before we got there, everything was paid. And when we left there, we had paid for it, and we didn't come home with any regret, any guilt, any bills, like nothing. And I cannot explain to you what that felt like. There was pride in it. All we came back with were memories and pictures, and that was it. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Our reasoning initially, just gonna be honest, was stress. You know, my husband was getting really frustrated, and myself, because we're on the younger side, and you know, his pay was increasing, and some bonuses would come through and stuff, and we'd be like, oh man, now we're gonna buy this, and we'd buy something new, and that money would go into it, and it'd be gone, and we had nothing to show for it, and then we'd be back to square one, feeling stressed out. We're like, how? Like, what is happening? Like, we're making more money than we were when we first got married. We always thought, like, hey, when we hit this income level, like, life's gonna be good. We'll have nothing to worry about. That day was not gonna ever come if we continued to do what we were doing. It was never, ever, ever going to come, because we were spending it as soon as we got it. And we're actually spending more because we had debt. We had credit cards and car payments and all that stuff that most Americans have, and it's supposed to be normal. But it's a drain on you. It is a drain. And even with a good income, and that's different for everyone, but even with a good income, you can be 1 to 2 paychecks away from destruction because you have so many payments due that if you go without a paycheck, you are just out of luck, big time out of luck. And you'll start to lose your shirt real quick. Because at the end of the day, you know, those people send you all this stuff, you know, they're sending you stuff in the mail, but as soon as you can't fork over that money, they're coming after you hard. And thankfully, we never got in that type of situation. But I really hate to think a year from now, had we not turned ourselves around, if we kept heading in that direction, I can't imagine where we'd be. Definitely still stressed, that's for sure. Okay, so the second one for us was just living in our truth. And it sounded silly at the time, but now looking back, yes, I mean, 100%. Saying your truth meaning like, hey, I don't have the money for this. It's on a credit card. If it's on a credit card, you didn't have the money for it. Like, I'm sorry, that just is what it is. If you cannot pay cash for it, if you had to finance it, whether it be a car, something that you had done to your home, maybe you had like a pool or a patio, or like, I don't know, even hiring someone to paint inside, you know, kitchen cabinets or whatever. If you had to put that on a credit card to pay for it, you could not afford it. And that's a hard thing for us, especially as Americans, I think, to really like, I can't have that. I can't afford it. Maybe in a few months if I save up I can. Maybe that's something that once I do save up the money and the impulse is gone, maybe I won't even want it. But just the honesty of telling yourself, and maybe someone, you know, I've had people that are like, hey, I want to go for lunch. I'm like, you know what, I've spent all my restaurant money this month because it wasn't very much, and we went out to dinner once and that's it. And just saying like, I can't, maybe we can meet for a coffee, or maybe we can do whatever. I mean, I've had to say no to certain things, but again, because of your reasoning, which I'll get into like the more specific ones in a minute. Thirdly, college for my boys. I have 2 young boys. We started college funds for them basically as soon as they were born. But ultimately, with the little bit we were putting in every single month, it was a strain. Sometimes we'd skip it. And it was never going to accumulate what it needs to be able to pay for college because, as we all know, it's expensive. So being able to get out of debt and have the money to put in funds for my boys is just huge. Like, they're not going to have student loans. They're not. Because we're going to have the money to be able to just write a check every semester and send them on, because we will have adequately prepared for that day. And that's just such a good feeling to be able not only to provide that, but to get them started on the right foot of not having student loans, because my husband and I both did. And that was through various choices that we made, like private education and things like that, that I'm going to teach my boys. You need to try to go to a state school, or at least have a scholarship in place, something. But also, again, to have the funds to pull from to make that happen. That's just been a big drive for us, because we were spending all our money on other things and not even really like looking into that as seriously as we should have. And now knowing what we do and having our money in place, it's not going to be difficult to put that money in that fund. So that's just really exciting and a really good goal. And I think most parents out there want to be prepared for that. So that might be your number one reason. I don't want my kids to be buried in student loans. Fourth thing is travel. This is a really exciting one. My husband and I have always liked to just go different places. It's mostly been on the East Coast where we live. We tend to go to the same places over and over again because we really like them. Again, that trip we took back in February, we did get to go out of the country for a bit, and that was fun. And we just want to spend that time with our boys, going different places and doing things while they're young and they want to be with us, because this time is fleeting. And I mean, I don't want to spend this time stressed out, finally pulling the trigger and going on a trip, even though we wouldn't have the money, putting it on a credit card, coming home, fighting with my husband about, you know, we spent too much, we did this, we did that. And like I said, now having been on the other side of that, paying cash for a trip, coming home with it, like, not even on the books, totally paid for. And just a little side note, you do not have to have a credit card to travel. I had heard that my whole life. It is untrue. Everything that your credit card does, your debit card does, except it's actually attached to your account. So you have to have money in there, unlike a credit card. Um, it is not any less secure than your credit card. Your debit card is secure. You just have to let your bank know, obviously, that you're going out of the country or wherever you're going, which I think you have to do that with the credit card anyways. But we personally no longer have credit cards. We pay them off and they're gone. Like, we don't even have them. We don't use them. And we took an entire trip, like I said, with plane tickets, passports, overseas, at a resort with no credit card. So I know for a fact it is doable. So don't fall into that pit and think that you need it for travel, because that's baloney. So I hope this was somewhat helpful to someone, especially someone just getting started. Maybe you're in the midst of it and you're really still trying to pull yourself up and get it done. Like, trust me, it is hard, but if it were easy, everyone would do it. People don't want to tell themselves no. People don't want to stand in that truth and say, I can't afford this, I can't do this, I couldn't afford that trip and I put it on a credit card. Now I need to do what I'm supposed to do and pay it off and live the right way. People don't want to do it. But if you're in the midst of doing this and changing your life and changing your family history, your family tree, and you're going to have children that won't have student loans and won't have a struggle and will get to take trips and have a peaceful household with parents that are not arguing over money, keep doing it. Keep at it. I promise you there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is so worth it. If you have any questions about my journey, I'm open to talk about it because I just really want to help people. Like I said, I've been here on YouTube watching other people talk about it, and it's just so inspiring and so helpful. So let me know. I would love to help anyone that I can. So I'll talk to you later.